Hello and welcome to Skeptic TV.
Hello, yes.
Not for a moment, no one's going to speak.
No, hello and welcome to Skeptic TV. I'm your host for the evening Sound of Silence. Joining me this week, we have Ellie Fayad 1991.
Hello.
We have Angry Womble.
Ow.
Blue Juggernaut.
What? He's drunk.
Yoshimo 1. And our guest, Gleamy, I do apologise. And our guest for the week, Falchion 49, but unfortunately, so far, we do not have Mr. Dathan.
I think you forgot
We have...
Well, good evening from me anyway.
Monitoring chat, we have Dutch Liam 84.
Hello, as well.
And we are going to wait a few more minutes and see whether or not Mr. Dathan turns up. There was some initial confusion about the debate.
Don't forget to give credit to our fucking tech guy.
Yeah, tech guy.
I do apologise to the tech guy. Keeping the show running smoothly as ever, we have Colin Masson.
Who is better than all of us put together.
Yes.
And should be speaking on the panel more often.
He's not better than me.
Just a dirty Hollander.
Fucking dogs.
Should we kick off with a bit of news while we're waiting for Dathan to pitch up?
Yes, are you going to mention the Sense About Science?
Yes, I was going to mention that first. Certainly while we're waiting, I hope that silence is just my end, my earphones blowing up. Anyway, there is, this is mostly for people in the UK, but there's a British charity called Sense About Science, and their whole kind of remit is public awareness, and understanding of science, making sure that the public are equipped to know what's going on, and they do a lot of effort in terms of trying to make things accessible, and they also do a lot of support to people that have found themselves being falsely accused of slander and the like by people that are peddlers of hokum and bad science. And they have a new campaign that they're trying to set up. It's called Report Dodgy Science, and they need to try and raise about £8,000 by the 22nd. So if you're in the UK and you think you could contribute and help to this, please do so. If you do, give some money on the Just Giving page. Please let them know it was Skeptic TV that sent you over, because they've also included our blog post about it on their forum. I'm just going to put the link in chat now for everyone.
Yep, if you would like to donate, it's senseaboutscience.org. That's all one word. And if you are a UK taxpayer, you can gift aid your donation, which won't cost you a penny, but it will cost the taxman.
Yes,
which is good news.
Yeah, so basically, if you put in £5 and you tick gift aid, the tax on that £5 will go to Sense About Science.
And we'd like to thank them very much for plugging our blog.
Yes.
Oh, and good news, everyone. Just a little adding here. For those of you who know, there is a, what's his name? DVR Jones will be having a charity drive for Médecins Sans Frontières. For those of you who don't know French, that's Doctors Without Borders. And that will be held sometime in mid-September. During the event, there will be some stuff being auctioned, including a drawing of a couple of YouTubers made by YouTube user Shayra. Her daughter made a couple drawings, including of one of myself. And in the drawing, for some reason, I am wearing a shirt that says, "I heart surprise butt sex." So yeah, I don't know why. Apparently, I love surprise butt sex. So in honor of that, I got a shirt custom made that says "I heart surprise butt sex," and it will be signed. It will be autographed by me, and it will be auctioned also during the charity drive. For those of you who, I will show you guys in a second what that shirt looks like once I get the picture to our awesome tech guy, so you guys can see what will be auctioned off.
And just a quick word on that for myself. I've got a little rock and mineral guide book thing, pocket book guide that I've used in my degree, which I'm going to give to the auction. I'm going to see if I've got any other bits and pieces, and I think the rest of us in the Skeptic TV team will be having a look around, see whether or not we've got something to contribute. So if you keep your eyes peeled and are lucky with some bidding, you might be able to own some genuine Skeptic TV property.
Here you go, tech guy. You can put that shirt up.
I
Well,
did
now we
worry
know.
for a minute when you said you were depicted in a T-shirt that says "I heart surprise butt sex," and you said, in honor to that or in tribute to that, I'm going. Don't tell me you had surprise butt sex. But yes, I will also be putting something up for auction. I haven't yet made up my mind
There we
exactly
go.
what. But if
Oh
you
my
stay tuned,
goodness.
if you stay tuned to our show and you stay tuned to the blog skeptictv.net, then we'll be giving you all the details about the blog TV event for Médecins Sans Frontières and also the eBay auctions.
You know you totally want that shit. So you guys are fucking auction a lot of money for that. It also goes to a good cause, so.
And now you all know what to get Lewis for his birthday.
Surprise
What?
butt sex.
I also like how the little heart has an awesome face on it.
Can you actually buy surprise butt sex?
Yeah, it's called a hooker, dude. They kind of charge like $300 an hour for the cleanouts.
What size
Yeah,
is the
the
shirt?
question is, would it be much of a
the
surprise?
sh-
if
the
they
sh-
Then
were-
it's not really a surprise, is it?
No, it's not really a surprise.
Might be a surprise for them.
It's a
what's-
surprise for
No.
the recipient.
I was
Yeah,
going to say the surprise butt sex is the fact that they will jump you from behind, presuming that you want some butt sex, and then they
Yeah,
take
it's
the
a
money
surprise.
forcibly from your wallet
it's a
afterwards. just to
surprise.
make
It's a
sure.
surprise for her. It's a surprise for her.
But then
The shirt is 3XL, just so you guys know. It is
3XL.
Yes, I am a very large man. I hope you guys know that, especially in my pants.
Sick.
But
He's
yeah,
talking about his ass, not the other side.
although for a 3XL shirt, I have to say, it's a pretty big fucking shirt. Like, it's a lot bigger than
if
other
a
3XLs.
family of midgets were really stuck outside in the wild one night and they happen to have this T-shirt of yours, they could potentially use twigs to make a tent.
Probably. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, dude, I'm pretty sure a midget could use this as a dress.
The only thing that would worry me
Nice
is
summer dress.
I personally would not like to camp in a tent that has emblazoned across it, "I heart surprise butt sex."
It may attract- it may-
Awkward sleeping arrangement.
it may attract bears who like surprise butt sex.
Only bears could read.
Fine.
I know one thing that they do in the woods. I don't know about other things.
Oh, also, if I would just want to add this because I think it's amusing. So because somebody mentioned shock in the somebody mentioned it in the chat. So apparently, Shock of God is spreading a rumor that I claimed to have a master's degree in history, and I just would like to clear that up because I'm sure most of you know that's a lie. But just in case you don't, I have never said that I have a master's degree in history. That's all bullshit on his part. But I am working towards
Are you studying it or something?
well, I'm a history major, so I'm working towards my degree. But I have never said that I have a master's in history. But I'm still.
Why exactly is he spreading such a rumor?
Probably to say that. Oh, I think he's lying. Like to you
Because
know,
he's a lying
he's trying to
toad.
he's trying to make it so that I'm dishonest. Because if I claimed to have a master's degree at 19 years old, that's probably bullshit. So if he says that I said that, it makes me look like a liar when he's lying about me lying, which is the brain confusion.
Meta lying.
He's
Yeah,
just being
I
a
don't
desperate
Yeah,
host.
he's just desperate now.
He's trying to be a politician, is all.
And
He's
failing.
even getting some hate off Conservapedia.
Oh
Really?
yeah. Well,
Ooh.
Conservapedia, he is the well, me and Blue and a lot of other people suspect that Shock of God is the editor on Conservapedia known as Conservative, and
Original.
I'm sorry.
I said original.
Yeah, he's one of the original ones.
But no,
And-
I mean it's a rather original name on
Oh, yeah.
Conservapedia to call yourself conservative.
So yeah, we're pretty sure he is that guy. And right now, what's his name? The editor known as Conservative is getting into some major shit with the other editors. I don't know what exactly he's doing.
Cysops.
Maybe somebody can, maybe someone can,
He's just being batshit crazy, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I know, but like, what has he done to incur the wrath of the other editors? I think he's like deleting shit that they don't want deleted, or he's adding
I
shit.
think what he did, he put something on the front page under the headlines, and Schlafly decided that he didn't want it there, so he deleted it. But then Conservative put it on another actual article somewhere in Conservapedia, the exact same thing, and I think.
Well, he probably put something, blowing shock of God on the front page, like, oh, some bullshit. Yeah, probably, since it's,
At the moment, they're all talking about this Question Evolution campaign in Great Britain. It's quite funny because I haven't heard a single fucking thing about it.
Yeah,
There is
I'm waiting for PB Simmons to respond to that video series that we made with Lapkeen77, and myself and many other YouTubers.
On that whole 15 questions things in the UK, there is a group called the British Centre for Science Education. It's basically a charity version of the NCSE in the States. And so far, from what I understand from speaking to people there, we've not heard a whiff of it yet in the UK that has been heard about in this community. So,
Question Gravity's got a bigger bloody following.
For real.
Well, I was going to say, if anyone in the UK hears about the old 15 questions of evolution thing, if they can drop me an email on womble@skeptictv.net, and I'll see if I can poke into it.
Excellent. I think would it be worth spending a couple of minutes just talking about the skeptical approach to claiming false credentials?
I'm sorry, James, but just very quickly, Puppy Turtle just informed me that the YouTube user Once Forgiven Now Free is actually responding to is making a response to the 15 questions thing that we made. So let's all wait for the lulz.
And good lulz they should be.
Yay, lulz.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with this accusation that you claim to have a master's in history when in fact you don't, I think that there's kind of an awful lot of unnecessary fuss drummed up around claiming false credentials, and it's kind of, from our side, it's centred around people like Kent Hovind claiming to have a PhD when it's not a legitimate one from a recognised university, and Ian Juby, who has been Dr. Ian Juby and Professor Ian Juby, and as far as we know has no formal qualifications in, well, anything. I think it's a message that Potholer 54 has drummed home on quite a number of occasions with people like Christopher Monckton, is it doesn't really matter whether or not you're qualified on the topic that you're speaking of, as long as you're getting the facts right.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I've always had no problem talking with someone that's educated on the subject, be it formally through a degree or parts of a degree or whatever, or informally, because you can have people that have self-studied up to the same level. But one thing that annoys me more than those that that claim false credentials, is those that actually have genuine credentials and then just ignore what you would have expected them to have learned and internally digested.
I'm pretty sure that most of those
and
people...
I'm thinking... I mean, does anyone know of a chap called Dr. Andrew Snelling?
I know the name. I can't think what he does now.
He has a genuine PhD in geology, but he's a creationist, a biblical creationist.
Is he the one who has a PhD from Harvard of all places?
I'm not sure. Possibly, I can't remember where it's actually from. But he pisses about with answers in Genesis and stuff like that, and it's
the same with Jonathan Wells.
That picture.
It's the same with Jonathan Wells, the guy who's got like a degree in biochemistry or molecular biology or something like that. But I think at some point in an interview he said he only did that. He only got the degree to bring down evolution. I'm sure I heard that somewhere. Is it?
Well, there's a chap that I've acquired as a bit of a nemesis, as it were, who happens to be my local creationist. And he's got a degree in environmental science, yet he turns around and says and talks and stuff that he's equipped to talk on the subjects of geology and biology. Now, there's plenty of subject crossover between those subjects, and environmental science is a very worthwhile subject in of itself. But you're not qualified to talk wholly about geology or biology, because what you've known from those topics is all context-based in what you've been learning.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of... The bottom line is that it's whether or not you claim false credentials to try and gain credibility that otherwise you might not. I think a lot of audiences would have more respect if the person standing it said, I actually have a PhD in a different area, but this is something about which I'm very passionate, or something about which I've researched heavily.
Well, one thing that that pissed me off. Like we were watching this in Point Man Zero's chat room. We were watching this video by this guy who was he worked for NASA, and I'll get to what his qualifications are. He worked for NASA, and then he became a young Earth creationist, and which is fucking retarded. And he was explaining how the planets could not have formed the way they are without some kind, like for example, the tilts of certain planets, Neptune, I believe it's Neptune or it's Uranus, spinning on its side, which for one thing is a stupid statement because there is no such thing as on its side in space. There is no, it's on its side relative to us, but there is no on its side. But anyway,
its axis of rotation is tilted to 90 degrees.
In comparison to us, though.
Oh, in
relative
comparison to its plane of orbit.
Yes. But so anyway, so he's trying to talk in a he's trying to talk from authority because he worked at NASA. He was a fucking electrical engineer.
I hate that. You get a degree in.
I worked at NASA. I worked at NASA.
You're trained to sort of study things analytically and all that. You get general analytical skills, but your subject knowledge is going to be in a specific area. And so, trying to say that because you have a degree in whatever, you can talk about this random subject really does.
Well, it's not that he had the degree in whatever. It's the fact that he worked at NASA. I'm guessing that makes him for some reason a credible source on I forget his name, but God, he's such a fucking idiot. Like I don't have any kind of qualifications for space, but or for astrophysics of any kind. But since I was little, I always was interested in space, and I've done research into it. Now, I could never hold my own against an astrophysicist if I actually disagreed with him, but the fact is, though, that I don't try to disprove what NASA has said. I agree with what they say because they're the scientists. They're the ones who probably know this shit.
And you're intelligent enough to be able to spot where you might see something that's dodgy, and you've got at least the basics in terms of the subject knowledge and the language within that scientific field to be able to get what they're talking about, even if some of it might
not just
need
that,
to go
but I've seen where they do the math, where they make the models that prove that this scenario can happen. And it goes back to the whole Occam's razor thing. I mean, if there is a natural, a less complicated explanation, you go with that one. And a supreme deity making everything is probably one of the more complicated answers if in a naturalistic standpoint. I mean, yes, it's easy to say, well, God just poofed it all. And yes, the natural creation of everything, the Big Bang, which led to matter forming, which made planets, et cetera, sounds complicated, but it's the natural way. It doesn't bring in the supernatural to make it. And the fact that they always jump to the supernatural because this one thing may seem slightly unlikely if you're an idiot, because they're like, well, how could a meteor crashing into it make it, turn on its side? Because it was a big impact? I don't know. So, it's just it just makes me pissed off.
All planets wobble or they change their axial tilt, albeit over long periods of time.
Well, the Earth, I think, does it like every 22,000 years, I think.
There are three things. There's a change in the shape of its orbit, what's called its orbital precession, and the changes in axial tilt, and they all happen over different time periods, but it's something like 22,000 years for the axial tilt, I think. And so, there's this old argument, I'm not sure whether Kent Hovind created it or whether it's something that he adopted from somebody else, but this idea about the conservation of angular momentum. And it can't explain why Venus spins upside down. And of course, the answer is that Venus is rotating in the same direction upside down. And apart from anything else, the conservation of angular momentum doesn't say anything about the direction.
Well, yeah.
But
Also,
yeah,
the fact that we see, they're like Nephilim 3. I think it said like there's no proof for what's the word shit, I forgot
what's it
the
got to do
disc
with
thing.
it? The what? Sorry.
The disc, like the I forget the
Oh,
space.
an accretory disc. Or
Yes, an accretion disc. Like I'm like, dude, we see those now. We can see those happening in distant galaxies. You asshole.
You can see this happening in our galaxy.
Exactly. Well,
You actually can't see much in distant galaxies.
Saturn's rings are basically a mini accretion disc.
Well, yeah.
I don't know how accurate this is because I will be honest, I am pulling this bit of information from the film Contact, but it was based on something written by Carl Sagan. But apparently, the Vega system is relatively young and might be, at least according to what they said in the film, might be having its own little planetary accretion disk, and that's only 26 light years away from us.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see that.
That's something I've actually heard as well. So.
Yeah, so I've not gone and formally fact checked that myself, but I'm kind of a little bit of credibility given to it. It was something written by Carl Sagan, and he would not piss on science.
Still not close enough for us to fly over there and start meddling.
Hell
Can
no!
I just-
I sod the meddling. I just want to go over there and watch.
Can I just
Might be sitting around for a while.
just
I
to
don't care.
update the listeners? We've had some contact from Mr. Dathan via a YouTube comment. He's still quibbling over the fact that he was originally told that the debate would be tomorrow on Sunday, and that he's almost creating the impression that we deliberately shifted the goalpost to try and catch him
Yeah,
there.
it was a genuine mistake. When I was speaking with Falchion, I was saying, let's not do this weekend or that weekend, but I was speaking in terms of weekends, and we confirmed the weekend. Falch kind of went with the fact that Magic Sandwich Show and Atheist Experience run on Sundays, and I forgot to confirm with him that he knew that it would be the Saturday because that's the day we do the show. So that's how it happened.
So this is all
hold my
Womble's
hats
fault
up to it.
again.
So
The thing is,
Hey, I'm allowed to make mistakes occasionally.
Blame
I'm
Canada.
just fucking kidding.
Yes.
sorry, Falchion. You wanted to say something, Falchion? Okay. So just to keep you updated, what it looks like is that because he seems to be on a computer at the moment, that comment was left about 6 minutes ago, but he's not joining us, makes me think that he's not going to be here for the rest of the show.
well, he
So-
actually did claim he was too busy to get to a computer.
All
He
right.
did that earlier today.
He,
And now
he,
it's
could,
just actually,
he could be on his mobile or something. On leaving
well,
YouTube
True,
comments.
but, you know, I've got
he
a mobile
comment
phone
on
that has Skype.
here.
Let's not speculate on this. But so what I think we'll be doing, listeners, is we will making the offer to return again next week at the usual time. Hopefully there won't be any confusion over this.
Next fortnight.
Yeah, and we'll keep you updated as to whether or not he will be there.
Well, I
So-
think to be fair, we should actually make him the offer to A, grow up, and B, to actually allow him to get a degree in bloody archaeology.
Well, the thing that interests me is the claim he made about the two masters from a certain popular subject. Not subject, university.
So the question now is, the plan was that if Mr. Dathan did not show, then we would keep Falchion on and we would just have a chat with him about what arguments he would have made and what evidences he would like to present. The question is,
Well, don't
we
do
want...
that. I mean, then he'll give away his strategy for.
That was what I was going to say. Do we still want to do that, or
When it
should
comes
we
down to
save it
things
in
like
case?
Well, if its
Well, when it comes
strategy
down
is
to
reality,
biblical
then he
archaeology,
should
you
have
don't
to
need a strategy anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Just try to just reality.
All you have to do is turn up with evidence, and it's a case you don't really need to strategize that much.
No, to just kind of, lead them as you would a reluctant horse to water. You maybe push their head in the water so they get the point that it's there. Not push it to the point of drowning them, though.
But it depends. So would you like to just take some questions, Falch, or would you rather...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
There was. Sorry.
no, I was going to say,
Use me
it's
as you
not-
will.
it's not just us that we're grilling. It's those of you who are watching. You can leave questions in the Blog TV chat, and we'll put to Falchion anything you like, as long as it's vaguely related to archaeology.
Well, I've got a
Somebody
kind of.
found the ark.
Who claimed they found the Ark?
Mr. Jim 999 has just been saying that apparently Dathan found the Ark, and he was going to reveal it. Is that? How about if I actually lean back? Is that better?
That's worse.
That's first.
Yeah.
Now got better.
I
Going to say. Let's go ahead,
go on.
James.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that I was hoping that the question of the Ark was going to be put forward. I've seen various creationist evidences, in inverted commas, for the Ark, whereby there's some aerial photograph and there will be a large boat-shaped shape on the ground.
Are you talking about Doropina?
Well, I think there are several, but I don't know whether or not that's the one. I don't know the names of them.
The big boat-shaped rock formation in Doropina is actually, I think, it's something like 18 miles away from Ararat itself. But that's been shown to be part of the Telchaka mudflow. And that was actually shown to be part of the Telchaka mudflow back in about, you're talking, 1968, something like that. Then along came a gentleman by the name of Ron Wyatt, whose only archaeological qualifications are that he actually owns a hat. And he decided that it was actually Noah's Ark.
I'm more qualified than him already, because I have a hat and I was digging in mud today.
Been on an archaeological dig.
I've been on an archaeological dig.
It's a fedora. Yeah. You can only count a hat if it's a fedora.
Falchian, somebody mentioned or asked in the chat, which is something that I was going to ask because, like I've mentioned before, history is my area of knowledge, I guess. And I've always been interested in this because I've heard it from multiple sources, and I'm hoping the archaeology backs me up on it. But somebody asked, could you talk about the lack of evidence for the Exodus story, which is something that I've heard, or which I've researched into myself a bit too.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, there is very little in the way of evidence for the Exodus story, literally from the occupation of any kind of areas of Egypt by large numbers of Jews, to the Exodus itself, to the events of the Exodus, and even down to the fact that it takes a while to actually get the Israelites into Judah and Israel to take on the Canaanites. And they're also doing it at the wrong time. If you look at Jericho, for example, it's a case of Jericho was actually occupied after the walls were destroyed, a long time after. A woman called Kathleen Kenyon actually managed to demonstrate that back in the 1950s. And we actually have a lot of evidence that shows that this wasn't going on, but other things were, and this is the problem. If we can pull up evidence archaeologically from other periods that are almost identical, and nothing significant is happening, then it's a case of we're showing that things didn't go that way.
If I could add something too, from my understanding, researching into this, the only evidence of Jews actually in Egypt in large quantities came well after the Exodus story, most likely during the time that Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians had invaded, Israel. Yeah. And that's probably where there was the great. But besides that, there is no, there's no evidence of, a mass quantity of Jews.
When the Bible was actually being written, large amounts of the territory that they previously owned were actually now owned by the Egyptians.
Well, yeah.
In fact, there's an Egyptian context actually sitting above the demolition layer at
somebody here named Robin L.
The Jericho. So it's a case of.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you kind of cut off for a second, so I thought you were done. Sorry.
Well, there was actually an Egyptian occupation layer above the destruction layer of Jericho. So either Joshua went in there, destroyed everything, and then left and allowed the Egyptians to come back in, or it was a case of the Egyptians were the greater political influence when the Bible was actually written.
Yeah.
Can I just...
Falchian, your mic's kind of getting a bit worse.
Yeah.
Okay, how's this?
Better.
Can I...
Maybe you can mute your mic when you're not talking, or just because it's rather loud.
I just quickly say I'm so glad that we brought up the Exodus story, simply because last time we discussed this, you were saying that it takes a long time for the Israelites to get in and out of Egypt. Last time we discussed this, I don't know whether you were aware, but we managed to ascertain that Noah and the Israelites would be able to run at least 60 miles an hour, if not near supersonic velocity.
I mean, it is actually quite amazing that they didn't actually work out if they wanted to get into the Holy Land, all they had to do was keep the Mediterranean on the left.
Um, somebody asked here. Can you mute your mic, please, Faustian? It's extremely bad. Oh, okay. Yeah. Somebody asked here. Robin L, one of our guests, asked, "Is there any historical proof outside the Bible that there was a Jesus?" And I think I would like to take that one. Um, Not really. No. There is a lot of things, or a lot of yeah. Faust, can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. When A lot of Christian apologists will talk about there's Raptor Jesus. A lot of Christian apologists will refer to Josephus, or will make mention of Josephus and his writings. Well, most historians agree that the Josephus writings about Jesus were most likely um, not really forgeries, but they were written by a scribe of Josephus well after Josephus had died. So it was not really written by Josephus, and this was written probably after Christianity had already been established. Most other writings, and there were many historians around that area at that time, they mentioned um, they mentioned the group known as the Christians. I think the most they make mention is that there is a group of people known as Christians. They follow a guy named Jesus who supposedly did stuff. They make no mention actually to Jesus as being a real person. They just say that there's a group of people who follow Jesus around around that area. But the fact is, though, there were multiple people in Judea who were, traveling that area claiming to be the Messiah. So, the Jesus story is not original to Jesus. In fact, the whole concept of a Messiah who comes and he has to die for humanity's sake is not original to Christianity. It's actually a story which has been around for quite some time in pagan religions. So it's not original at all to it's not original to Christianity. In fact, it's actually plagiarized from many pagan stories, much like other parts of the Bible, like the flood of Noah and other parts like that.
Yeah,
You know,
I was gonna say the Roman legend or myth of Mithras, who was a demigod who was born to a virgin, died for the sins of mankind, but was resurrected. It's basically, his story is virtually identical to that of Jesus. And Mithras Day was December the 25th, or what is now December the 25th, which is why Christmas is celebrated on that date rather than in, I think October is what is generally accepted to be a more historically
no.
accurate date.
Most biblical historians believe they would put, if Jesus was a real figure, and of course they would say that he is, would put his birth sometime in the spring, like April-ish.
I think,
Um,
I think it's Jehovah's Witnesses that claim it was October.
Yeah, but so another thing that's interesting about the whole Jesus story is that the dates, or the chronological events mentioned in the Bible don't add up. For example, they say that Jesus was born during the reign of King Herod. During the reign of King Herod, they had the Caesar Augustus was who was Caesar, and he had some kind of census. Well, this doesn't add up for multiple reasons. One, Herod died by 4 BC. So that, so that already puts it out of the 0 AD for when Jesus was born.
Or 1 AD,
But
I should say. There was no year 0, which confuses the hell out of me.
well, yeah, that's
But yeah,
true.
yeah, that's nitpicking.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. No. But there's also but also Augustus Caesar did not have a census like the one they mentioned in the Bible. They did have a census, but it was not until about 10 AD. And the census did not require you to go back to where you were originally from, like the Bible says. So right there, that completely discredits the chronology in the Bible, because it does not add up. None of it adds up to when Jesus was supposedly born.
There is also the point that there's not a huge amount of archaeology from that particular part of the Iron Age. Any kind of post-Iron Age, in fact anything that's even post-Hellenic, actually in the Bethlehem in Nazareth.
Oh, yeah.
However, there is one in Galilee. There is actually a thriving Bethlehem at the time in Galilee, which is only about, I think it's somewhere in the region of about 5 or 6 miles from where he was living at the time.
Yeah, there was Bethlehem was not a big city at all. Was not very important at all when back in the day.
The Bethlehem that he's supposedly born in didn't exist as far as we're aware.
Yeah, it was basically.
It wasn't actually there.
From what I understand, what existed there in that area wasn't really a city. It was more like a small, very very small town, like a couple houses with a well. That's about all that was there.
Well, archaeologically, again, we're not even sure that there was that many, but we have actually found quite a few burial sites there. So it looks as though apparently Joseph had to go back to a cemetery.
Yeah, just a question that I would quite like to ask, rather than the birth of Jesus, but the death of Jesus. I've often heard this figure that Jesus was 33 years old when he died, and to the best of my knowledge, that itself is not actually described in the Bible. So does anybody actually know what evidence we have for this age?
The way they get that number is in the Bible. You know, he starts his ministry when he's 30, and then I guess they calculated that he did a bunch of shit for 3 years, and they offed him, at the age of 33. That's how they get those numbers. That's how they get that number, basically.
Right. Okay. Because I didn't know whether there was any kind of record of somebody being crucified on a particular day who has a name. And I don't think, if I remember correctly, Jesus' name when he was alive was almost certainly not Jesus.
No, it was Joshua.
Joshua, yeah.
No, Jesus is a Latinization of it.
Yeah.
That was
what I needed to ask.
Cool. Well, I've got a question, and it's or something to talk about, and it's something someone else in the Blog TV chat mentioned. There was a Channel 4 documentary done a good number of years ago by a chap called David Grohl, I think. No relation to the drummer or the guy from the Foo Fighters, but it was basically saying, and I can't remember off the top of my head which way around it was, but it was something like the 22nd and 21st dynasties of Egypt, as opposed to having occurred linearly, they overlapped slightly. And if you change the chronology slightly like this, actually some biblical events, in terms of events that happened, whether or not they had any kind of divine kind of keying into them, sort of certain battles and stuff, they can be then sort of put into place with events that are known to have happened from Egyptian events. So what's your take on this, Faust? Do you know if it's possible that someone might have got the chronology slightly wrong?
Well, I'm no expert on Egyptology, but the thing is, it's a case of, even if things like that did happen, it's a case of, as you said, were they divinely inspired? I mean, archaeologically, again, it's not a case of we're actually looking at archaeology here, we're looking at interpretation of history. Archaeology is actually the physical remains, it's the forensic remains of everything. If you actually look at that, then can they actually claim that the Bible is true because the Egyptians didn't drown during the flood?
Well, we know the flood's not real, but it's in terms of some of
where's
the
credibility for the Bible then?
Well, I think it was. I know when I watched this documentary, there was a site that he went to, and they said that they had some non-natives that had been living there as a workforce, and there'd been this statue that had been. They think it might have been destroyed after the people living in this settlement had left. Well, no, it's not flood. But this statue that was destroyed, they did find some specs to say that it might have had some bright coloured painting on it. So whether or not the possibility of at least the story of Joseph being true.
Time, to be honest with
Sorry?
you. That's not unusual. If you look at a lot of statues of deities at that time, they would have been painted. It's actually quite a late convention that statues weren't painted. A lot of them at that particular point in time would have been gilded, they would have been painted.
So I know I read something about a statue setting that they've got above the entrance to the British Museum. Although it's plain marble looking now, they've used some sort of technique to analyze it, and it showed that it would have been brightly painted in the past.
Yes, Greek
ancient,
statues. A common misconception, because that's all that we can see now, because the paint is all after thousands of years, the paint has worn off. But back in the day, Greek statues were actually very lively painted.
They were terribly gaudy,
colorful.
weren't they? They were.
Yeah, they were extremely colorful, very, very eyesore-ish. Just like, what the fuck?
It was actually a way of proclaiming status as well. If you could actually afford to have a statue, you could afford to have it really brightly painted. And all of the paints and pigments, remember, were actually made by hand. They actually took a lot of effort, and they cost a lot of money to actually get them applied.
So it's the ancient Greek penis extension, really, then, isn't it? They didn't have Mercedes and Beamers. They had
except
these giant statues.
I wouldn't say penis extension. I'd say it's basically the conservatory. People actually have a nice conservatory put on the back of their house nowadays. At that time, you actually have a nice, large statue of your favourite god.
Yes. Although I should say, Womble, that small genitalia was fashionable in the ancient world, so it would have been a penis contraction.
Fair enough, then.
Well, the Macedonians did actually look on large penises for some reason as being feminine.
I understood that a large penis was considered barbaric, but I didn't know feminine.
Inside with a,
Feminine.
Well, maybe it's to do with the fact that with the larger penis, they could get deeper inside and therefore closer to the woman's inner being.
Either that or they're just weird.
Yeah,
it could be.
So back in the day, I would have been considered extremely effeminate.
Yes, of course you were. Same thing that the same thing said nowadays, isn't it?
Yes, if you have a huge wang, you're considered a bitch.
You can say the word penis.
I know, but I think the word wang is funnier.
Fair enough.
Can I just say, am I right in
Why is it
saying
every time we have a bloody Skeptic TV, we end up talking about penises? What the fuck?
Because Womble's here.
Can I just...
Excuse me. I'm not the only person that likes chasing men
Okay,
here. We've
fine.
got all
We've got-
three of the men
yeah.
chasing members in here.
Yeah.
I was
Hello.
going to say, I don't think that statue on screen at the moment is actually an ancient Roman one, because they wouldn't have been able to do the arm outstretched like that. It would always break off. I may be wrong in that. Maybe a very late one where they'd developed.
I'd be
better
more worried about
statue.
the baby falling off.
The baby holding on to whatever the bucket's
Knee.
holding on to.
I can't
I'm
remember.
not going to say what I said. No, I just thought the
Yeah,
baby
he's
should be
holding
holding
onto
on
his
to.
dick.
You've got to remember,
That's what I was thinking. too.
remember, these people are actually very good engineers. I mean, they could actually raise up quite
Oh
large
yeah,
buildings
dude,
and
they
quite
built the
large
Pantheon.
Hell, even if they didn't have our level of technology, they were very sophisticated in a number of ways.
Well, shit,
I mean,
they built the Pantheon. That alone is impressive as shit.
I love the Pantheon, but I just said, the older Greek statues, if they have an arm outstretched or something like that, there's this funny little strut that's just sort of decorated because they don't know what they can make it look like, just to hold the arm up. But maybe in a later one when they put iron pins in. I think that little baby, by the way, was Romulus.
That is the funky stuff that they struck.
Right, we've had some questions come through from chat, so I'll just sort of go through them in the order that they've been passed on to us by Dutchy. Someone wanted to know if there really was a 1 AD, and when did people really start using the AD dates rather than backdating?
The Romans decided on when to use the AD. This was actually one of the most painfully dumb things that I had ever heard in my life. For those of you who are fans and know who Eye to Eye 35 is, he once said he said that Jesus is proved in history because Jesus separated BC and AD. Which is probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. The Romans...
hang on, my brain just stalled there.
Yeah.
The how
Romans,
stupid that was.
the Romans decided when to separate... Well, the Romans, once it became the Roman Church, decided when to separate... they decided that the birth of Jesus, which was... 1 AD, they decided that would separate, his birth would separate a time, would separate before Christ was born and then the year of our Lord, Anno Domini. Well, that's what that's Latin, what it means, Anno Domini. That's what they decided, year one, when Jesus was born, would be the separating factor between before Jesus and now. So that's where we get, this is the year 2011 AD, Anno Domini.
Yeah, so I'd just say, presumably up until that point, the Jews would obviously have been using the Jewish calendar and the Jewish year numbering system.
Well, some
Well, I
guy
was
who,
gonna say, aren't we on like our third revision of like the kind of generic standard accepted calendar, with it being the Gregorian calendar? Haven't there been like two others or something?
yeah, well, they calculated that, or whoever calculated Jesus's birth was apparently off by a while. He wouldn't have been born till about 4 A.D. According to the way we use the calendar now. He actually would not have been born until 4 A.D. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I was just going to say, and I'm not sure what system the Romans were using before they adopted Christianity, but it wasn't until, I'm informed by Wikipedia, 312 AD, what we would now call AD, that Christianity was adopted into the Roman Empire. So it probably would have been the case then that once it was adapted, or at least, or sometime later on, they would have had to try and count back and work out what the new system was. So no, I don't think there was
Christianity
ever...
wasn't actually canonized until about 325 AD anyway, the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah.
The actual dating methodology they used beforehand was a decimal dating methodology.
So in answer to the question that was asked, I think it's almost certainly no, there was never a period when people went around saying this is the year one.
It's all post-dated.
Yeah, they never, exactly.
Okay,
but,
sure.
but it was a couple of hundred years before they started counting back.
And if I remember correctly, the Roman Empire started using Christianity because their empire was falling apart and they needed to unite people.
Well, it was
They
not
did it
just
through
that, but it
religion.
was also the fact that the Emperor Constantine decided to cover his bases, and he's like, you know what? In case these Christian dudes are right, let me get baptized. And so began a fucking terrible nightmare that we know as Christianity.
There are worse nightmares, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, getting
Well,
stuck
like
with
being
death in a
stuck
room
in,
forever.
yeah.
But I mean, like,
Should we move on to the next question now? It was from No Faith, No Pain, and it was, what is the archaeological evidence that Nazareth,
Nazareth.
that's it, existed?
Can we just quickly say hello to CS Bear, who's just joined us?
hi, CS
I've been on
Bear.
Hello.
The token
Hello,
sexist,
CS.
apparently.
Ray
The thing is,
Romano.
you've got to remember with a lot of these places, they did exist, but the question is the timing. It's all phasing. So the question
Bit
is,
like a
what
bad
significance
Star
did they
Trek
have at the
plot
time?
device then. Sorry, that
Or
was
a really bad Doctor Who one.
Doctor Who
Aw.
beats any American sci-fi hands down.
An important place at that particular point in time. It's not going to leave a massive archaeological imprint. That answer the question?
I think so.
Yeah,
There's
that answers it very well. I mean, the fact is that, yes, most of these places are based on some reality. So Nazareth's existence is not unlikely. In fact, there's probably evidence that it does exist. But, like he said, the timing and for its existence would be off.
With Bethlehem, there was a Bethlehem up in Galilee that was fully functional, very, very vibrant little market town at the same time as supposedly Jesus was born. But at the same time as supposedly Jesus was born, the area that he was meant to be born in, as in the Bethlehem further south, wasn't shown or doesn't show the same kind of archaeological evidence that we have now, or for the other one, should I say. So at that particular phase in time, it looks as though the northern one was the more significant, the southern one didn't exist.
Okay, so next question is one that came through via Skype from Puppy Turtle, and he wanted to ask, do we want him to join in the call, guys, or just...
I mean, we can just
Well,
read
we're a
the
little bit
question.
full, but we can have him on for his question,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Can we get him in the call then? There we go.
There it is.
I was waiting for my cue there.
Hello.
Hello, Puppy Turtle.
Hello.
My question is Nephilim free in particular, but all creationists. Hovind does this also. They will show you two things that I'd like to ask about. One, they will show you artifacts that are supposedly of humongous hammers and tools and such that could have only ever been used by giant people, and that is supposed to prove that the Nephilim existed, and because the Nephilim existed, God created the earth with magic 6,000 years ago.
Well, I could actually answer this. I mean, right there. I mean, just because they had giant things, it does not mean that they actually used these. I mean, they were used mostly for decorative purposes. I mean, I think I know probably what the next question would be. I know Nephilim Free also loves to mention the fact that they have statues of a man holding a lion as if it was a cat. You know, I'm like, yes, because when you make a depiction of someone, it always has to be 100% correct. Like it has to be actual. It has to be an actual depiction. They can't, you know, exaggerate anything.
Not just
It
that,
can't
you've
just be
also got to
shorthand for
remember
this guy's
that
awesome.
Middle Eastern lions are actually significantly smaller than African lions.
Well,
Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, he could have found a lion that had suffered from mild dwarfism.
Well, not just that, but the
not
whole
even that,
fact
they were
is-
actually smaller, though, physically smaller. But
Don't
remember,
just-
Nephilim Free is the person who tried to use the Stalingrad War Memorial to show that they were giants. He actually claimed that the statue of Mother Russia on top of Maliev Kurgan is in fact a giant, and below there he tries to claim that there is actually a muscular statue coming out of a pond which is carrying a PPSH-41 submachine gun. Now they're 83 centimeters long. It gives us a scale.
Well,
I mean, this is the point I tried to make in one of my videos about the fact that Ron Wyatt, the famous biblical archaeologist with the hat.
Oh, we lost Faustin there.
Yeah. Well, to
But no,
continue
it is-
what I was
I mean-
saying though was that. I'm sorry, James. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, of course, there are hundreds of statues, even in the ancient world, of things that are enormous. Either they were depictions of gods, like the Colossus of Rhodes or the Colossus that stood outside the Colosseum in Rome. Now, either they are depictions of either mythical giants, and of course, there's no reason why people have to have seen something to come up with it as a story, or they are depictions of real people, but they make them bigger simply as a mark of status.
And by
Statue
the
of
same
Liberty.
token, is Horatio Nelson, or did Horatio Nelson actually live on top of a very, very large column?
All right, my second and related question. My second and related question, I guess.
Womble, we can barely hear you.
Yeah, sorry. No, Puppy, ask your question.
My second and related question is, I guess this is technically paleontology, but what of the giant skeletons that are found?
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Womble,
what giant skeleton?
Puppy, I don't want to stop you from asking another question. We've got a few other questions to get through, so
This
if,
was
you
it's all right, one because this was
It's
basically
a
just
last
about
question.
giants.
question. But the giant
That's the
thing,
idea.
there is no
It would be
evidence for.
archaeology.
Yeah, there's no evidence for giants anywhere.
Now,
The
I mean,
boat
the
that they keep waving around
is the
is
47.
Adobe Photoshop.
No, we've lost him again. Well, I'll address this. Some of the evidence, we've seen some of these old photos of giant skeletons have been excavated, and some of them are obviously fake, and so we can sweep those aside for starters. Of those of the left, some of them Neff cited saying that they were things like 10 feet tall. Now, 10 feet isn't by any means unachievable for a human. Certainly those who have growth hormone problems, things like that,
It's
can go to
pretty. It'd
that
be
height.
pretty hard, but
No sweat. I mean, in the ancient world, obviously it wasn't as easy because people weren't as well fed and so on. But that's not outrageously tall for an ordinary human being.
and also not just that, but we know that physically, physically on an anatomic level, it is impossible for a human being to be 15 feet tall and still be able to walk. You know, they can't keep the same dimensions and be that tall. It would look like something completely not human. The legs would break under the weight of the under the weight of the person if they were actually that big. That's why extremely tall people, for example, Yao Ming, Shaquille O'Neal, people that are huge, and they're not even 8 feet tall. They're a little bit over 7 feet. But people who are extremely tall tend to have leg issues because they still are human, so they still have human proportions, but their legs are not wide enough to carry the weight above them.
Yeah, that's it. I know it's something we've talked about previously, the whole biological issue of the fact that to have a giant person, you would have to have
Massive legs.
Massively increased diameter of things like the legs, and then you just start getting to the point of, given Earth gravity, to the point that you cannot physically support that kind of human. I mean, I know we do have some quite large animals, but they've all evolved within this gravity over time.
Yeah. I mean, well, look at one of the largest animals that we have on land is the elephant, and it right there has huge legs.
Yes.
And like, for example, the blue whale, which is, I think, if I'm correct, it's the largest animal on the planet right now.
It's also the largest animal that has ever lived on planet Earth, as far as we know.
Well, yeah, if you put it on land, it would actually crush itself under its own weight. I mean, it's evolved to be massive because it's on land, so they can. I mean, since it's in the water, the weight thing isn't as big as an issue because of buoyancy and all that good stuff. But on land, it would crush itself under its own weight.
I think it's also very interesting that none of these supposed giant skeletons have been reported in any archaeological journals.
Oh, that's
Yes,
because
I mean,
there's a giant conspiracy behind them. There's a giant conspiracy by the National Geographic Institute and by the Smithsonian Institute and all those people to hide these things. Come on, it's a conspiracy.
There is that fantastic video by Neff where he's reading an email conversation that he has with a museum where he asks them, is it true you used to have these giant skeletons? And the man says back, no, that's just a rumor. And Neff says, see, it's all a cover-up.
See, Neff is the sort of person that you could actually, go to the effort of taking him all the way around a museum, showing him all the kind of behind the scenes storage that's kind of like within the building, showing him any kind of external storage facilities anywhere, complete and total honesty, and he will always turn around and say, despite you bending over backwards multiple times doing massive hoop jumping gymnastics type stuff here, and he will still say, oh, but there's a conspiracy.
Yeah, it's often incorrectly said that absence of evidence is evidence of absence, but in Neff's case, he argues that absence of evidence is evidence of existence.
Well, the funny thing is that when he mentioned the story, because he said that he saw this in a story on the like some old ass newspaper said that this one dude found a skeleton of like a Native American who was a giant, and then I believe it was Potholder did some digging up, and he found that the skeleton he found the original news story, and I'm guessing that that Neff didn't even read the news story, because they found a femur of a giant. The femur was 14 or 15 inches long, which is not a giant by any standards. I mean, if I were to cut my leg off and measure that is actually pretty short. I mean, if I measured my femur, I probably have a 20 to 22 inch femur, because I'm a tall ass individual, maybe even more. I mean, that is I mean, some people would say I'm a fucking giant, but I am by no means a fucking Nephilim. So if that person is smaller than I am, I don't know what giant cover-up there is there.
Well, like I said, the famous one is the 47-inch femur, the one that's in the museum with basically it's stuck up on a wall. They have drawn a human skeleton around it. The femur on the other side doesn't even match it, and they're trying to claim that's human.
Aren't they like elephant femurs or something? I don't know.
That's actually a dwarf elephant. Show it to an archaeologist, and the first thing they'll say is, "Oh, that's a dwarf elephant."
Gotta love it.
It's yeah. There is actually not much you can say to that. We have a giant human femur. It's an elephant femur. It's a giant human femur.
Okay, so has that?
Hey, let's calmly move to the exit.
So have we answered your question, Puppy?
May I make one comment before I go? Regarding, I do think I can prove. See, there's this statue in New York City. It's a big blue statue of a woman, and as we can tell by her proportions, clearly there were 300 foot tall humans in the.
Sorry to spoil your joke, but you have already mentioned the Statue of Liberty in this conversation.
Yeah, you have.
There was a joke on the television programs years ago, in fact, where they said the Statue of Liberty has a waist measurement of 40 feet, or as it's known in America, medium.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on with your question, Puppy.
Yes, thank you, Puppy Turtle.
And,
we'll move on
read
now.
out,
So that was good.
let me just scroll back up and get the next question, which was from Nettie. It was, is there any evidence in Mesopotamian sources for a local flood in the late Stone Age?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, in the late Stone Age.
Well, there's hardly likely to be any records in the late Stone Age unless you're actually looking at environmental archaeology.
Yeah.
But it is a floodplain.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Rick.
It is actually a floodplain, and if you actually look in that area, yes, there are quite obvious alluvial layers that are actually in the stratigraphy there. And yes, it floods. It's a river.
Yeah, if
I
I
was
could
going to
just
say,
say
speaking as someone that's trained up in the whole kind of physical geography and I'm forgetting how to speak, in that sort of stuff. Yeah, anytime you get a river that's got to the point where it's meandering and the ground's flat, you are going to get floodplains.
Well, if I could... Sorry, go ahead, James.
I was just quickly to say the name Mesopotamia translates as between rivers. And yes, it is incredibly low-lying, and it is surrounded on either side by water, so it is going to flood incredibly often.
Well, like I was going to say is that, also going back to history, from a historical standpoint, the reason that we have a lot of coinciding flood stories from many civilizations, for example, Gilgamesh has a flood story, the Bible has a flood story, the Jews, Christians. The reason...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I interrupted you.
Well, like I was saying is that the reason there's so many flood stories that coincide is because most civilizations started in that area. That is the fertile crescent. That is the cradle of life. That is where civilization started, and it is pretty known throughout it is historically accepted that around the year 2900 BC there was a massive local flood around the area of the kingdom of Shuruppak, and that was the it's the actual it is the origin for all the flood stories from around that area, because most of civilization started from around there.
I have heard the story, and I don't know, this was on a documentary years ago, and I can't remember what evidence they had for it, but there was the idea that Noah was in fact a merchant trader who survived with his animals floating on the roof of his market stall, presumably in this great flood, which has since sparked this myth.
But also at the same time, it's very important to remember he wasn't the only survivor. Lots of other people survived in the area.
Yes, of course.
But because of the flood and because of the fact that he actually had probably a little bit of notoriety, then maybe he actually managed that. But it's also quite contentious that this is the area where civilization started, because archaeology is showing that, actually, civilization probably started in several other areas.
It's just a case of the winners always writing the history. I mean, when I sort of tried to chip in, I was going to point out the fact that regardless of what point in history you're talking about in terms of like older sort of ancient civilizations, is people as a settlement are always going to need water. So you're going to find people are going to live in coastal and river areas so that they've got access to water. And those things will be subjected to flooding. So it doesn't matter what period of history you're going to be in, you are always going to have flooding affecting people on a regular
especially
basis.
when you've got agriculture, you're going to go to the more
Exactly.
fertile areas, and that's going to be areas that are regularly refreshed
I mean, the
flooding.
reasons why not every housing area now in kind of most of the westernized world aren't flooded is that we actually have the ability to pipe water around the country. So somewhere that's 5-10 miles from an aquifer or a dam or a river or whatever, where historically you wouldn't be able to build a settlement, you are able to build a settlement because we can pipe the water there.
It's also very interesting to note all of these cultures that don't actually have a flood myth. I mean, one of the most famous ones is the Jomon, who actually give us some of the earliest pottery. So if you've actually got the Jomon, who are in Japan, where we've actually adopted the Japanese word for tidal wave being tsunami, and nobody's actually there got a flood myth, then what does that tell you?
Yeah, it just depends on geographical location and everything.
So what's the next question?
Okay, the next question was from Sammy G, and did Sodom and Gomorrah actually exist?
If Rick wants to take it,
Yes.
he can have it, or I can take it too.
Yes, there are actually cities along that line, but unfortunately it's a case of they're mentioned earlier than the Bible in Akkadian Poland. And I believe it's Gomorrah, that's actually possibly Hebrew for field of ash or something like that. So it looks as though these places were actually destroyed prior to the Jewish occupation of this area.
Well, not just that, but we know now from, yes, Sodom and Gomorrah probably existed, but we also know now, knowing that there are things such as earthquakes and things like that, and since there are actually a lot of, that area actually does have a lot of
earthquakes.
Thank
Well,
you
they're
for
actually on
that.
a fault line.
Since there's a lot of volcanoes and actually, there are actually tectonic movement in that area. We now know that there are such things as earthquakes, not God, that could level, cities and shit like that.
Yeah, there is this this idea that I've heard, which is that
if I'm not mistaken, I believe Japan just had one of those.
there is in
Maybe
roughly the area where we would expect Gomorrah to be. There is a very active earthquake fault. There's one which runs basically the length of the Mediterranean, where the African plate meets the European one. And
that boundary is relatively frequent in terms of the periodicity of the earthquakes, and we do have a very good idea of the, not necessarily kind of we can predict a date and to any particular strength, but we know that once one part of the fault slips, you've got a certain window in which the pressure's moved along further down on the fault, then you will general area likely to have another fault.
But it's
also interesting to look at building materials that used at that particular point in time as well. They were not particularly earthquake proof.
No,
of course not.
But the location in question has a large body of water, and it sits right atop a fault which runs off from the main plate margin, and every so often blobs of asphalt will come out and they'll bob up to the surface of the lake. And asphalt is basically just like tar. It's a fraction of crude oil that moves up through fault lines, and it's thought that, I think it was Gomorrah, might have been Sodom, that these people made their settlement around this lake and would collect the asphalt and sell it, and that was how they they traded asphalt to earn money.
Going back to, sorry.
I'll just quickly say, but then it's not really a surprise if they're on this active fault. It's not really a surprise if their town was destroyed. It also explains how they could be so wealthy, because asphalt was very useful for waterproofing boats.
Yeah, but going back also to Exodus, they mention that when the Jews leave Egypt, there's a giant plume of fire out in the distance guiding them. Well, we also know that around that same area, there's a shitload of volcanoes. So, it could be just one of those going off.
Except that's implying that they're all geologists, because geologists are the only people that would run gleefully towards a volcano erupting. Come on, I've got to hands up admit to the fact that my profession is a bunch of nutbags, because seriously, if a volcano's going on, I'm going to need to be dragged away from it.
like the guy you photographed Mount St Helens erupting, and he knew that the chances are that he would probably get blasted to pieces by the eruption, but he still stayed there. And
Well, it's my one of my lecturers on my degree. It was the volcanologist, and he was saying how this was a volcanologist conference, and a bunch of them all went off on this trip because geologists on a conference will go off on trips, and someone had this new gadget that he tried out on this volcano, and he turned around and said to them, "Well, according to my equipment, the volcano's about to go off, but I think it's not working properly, so we'll just ignore this reading." And what happens? The volcano goes off, and all but one or two of them die.
a bit of kit goes as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it did. And it is something that I've watched some sort of documentary where they discussed a survivor getting down, trying to get help back to the others. So it is something that I know.
At least
has
they died
happened.
happy.
Probably died screaming, to be fair.
It is another one of those unfortunate things. We were saying that people like to live on floodplains because they're very fertile for farming. People live near the sea for fishing and get hit by tsunamis. A lot of people live near volcanoes because the ash makes the soil very fertile. So it's not really much of a surprise that natural disasters feature so much in myths and stories of various cultures.
They're just so awesome to watch.
Depending on how far away you are when they're actually occurring.
True. Okay, so this guy has a question, and he keeps spelling it in all caps. Noah's a myth. That the myth evolved from the Ark and Noah. No, we actually already went over this. I guess you maybe weren't here. The Noah myth is actually comes from the Babylonian. I mean, not the Babylonian. Excuse me, the Mesopotamian flood story. Also, referenced in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Next question.
Is there any validity to the claim that Noah's Ark... Oh, no. Oh, yeah, no. Start again. Dougal445 asks the following. Is there any validity to the claim that Noah's Ark came from the Egyptian Nile?
Yes, that's what I just answered.
Yeah.
Derp.
Never mind.
I've just moved rooms. I'm confused.
It's okay, Wombo. We still love you.
What haven't we yet discussed?
Hold on, wait. Somebody, wait. Set 2121 has a good one. Have you ever heard Shock claim that more evidence exists for Jesus than Alexander the Great? Yes, I've heard him say that, and no, that is not right at all. I'm sure that Faustian will be able to back me up on this one. Let's see. Let's go over the evidence.
Alexandria, that's always a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, let's go over the evidence that exists for Alexander. Let's see. There are statues of Alexander made, by the people that he conquered. There are writings about Alexander by the people that he conquered. There are cities named after him in the areas that he conquered. Now let's compare that to
Flying Kingdoms. You've got the Day of Dark. You've got the fact that the entire Persian Empire collapsed.
Exactly.
So let's
compare that to the evidence of Jesus, the Bible, the end. That's it.
Yep.
The Bible, which in itself is not good evidence because it's very questionably authored.
Was burned. Persepolis was burned. We actually have the little charcoal layers that shows that this actually happened. We actually have the fall of the Persian Empire. We actually have him going out all the way as far as, where is it, Hesperides, or Hesperides, the battle that he fought there.
And another thing to do with Alexander, because he was apparently, if I'm getting my history right, bearing in mind I stopped doing history when I was 14, Alexander was nobbing Cleopatra, or supposed to be?
No.
Ptolemaeus. Ptolemaeus was one of his generals.
Cleopatra was his great something or other granddaughter.
Yeah.
Alexander
there was the palace that they couldn't find to Cleopatra.
Alexander was actually most likely gay.
There was
Alexander's probably the most kick-ass gay in history.
I'm going to beat you all up.
Again.
I'm going to hurt you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I couldn't hear you.
But when the Nile Delta, there was something with the water level receding slightly, and so scuba divers in the area found evidence of a submerged Egyptian palace. that had been lost, as it were, by the Delta.
Well, the most significant thing found was the lighthouse at Alexandria.
Yeah.
I mean, that was actually one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. He also left things like the mole at Tyre, which he used to actually get into the fortifications there. Not just that, I mean, you've actually got the entire Seleucid Empire, you've actually got the late Macedonian Empire, you've got the fact that Ptolemaeus was a Macedonian. I mean, so all of this stuff about there being less evidence for Alexander the Great than for Jesus, I mean, is what we in archaeological terms call bollocks.
And also something I mentioned yesterday talking to some people, it actually would make more sense to be a Muslim rather than a Christian, because we actually have evidence that Muhammad was a real guy. I mean, of course, there's no evidence that he was, actually a fucking prophet who was talking to God. I mean, besides him saying it. But we actually know that Muhammad is a historical figure. Jesus is not.
Careful, Lewis. Fox News might say that the atheists and the Muslims are teaming up to destroy America.
Well, Fox News may lose their broadcasting license soon, so fuck them.
Let's pray that they do.
Please, Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Yeah, we'll pray to Allah that they lose their broadcasting.
It would actually be almost worth turning up to a church for that one, wouldn't
it? Do we have any more questions from the chat at the moment? No? Because I thought, I don't know whether or not it would be interesting to talk about some of the holy relics, just from putting the trailer together with clips of Indiana Jones, just things like possibly evidence for existence of the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant.
Well, same detail. It's a case of we actually have people who claim to be, in inverted commas, biblical archaeologists. Again, Ron Wyatt, whose ugly head just basically rears itself every time one of these things occurs. They claim they found them, but again, they haven't actually reported anything. They provided no documentation. They haven't provided photographs. They haven't given a location. They haven't actually given them any kind of excavation strategy. They haven't actually even produced a photograph of the spoil heaps. So we're meant to believe them on faith?
Of course, faith is a virtue. Not believing in something with absolutely no evidence is a good thing.
Well, exactly.
Of course.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm converted by the idea of this evidence of the Ark and what have you.
Well, the thing is, if I actually want to provide something that is going to be based or taken seriously as an archaeologist, I actually have to do things like turn up with a pre-excavation strategy. I have to have a site register. Everything has to have a number. I've actually got to archive everything. I've got to provide photographs, drawings. I've actually got to provide a detailed stratigraphy. I've got to do all of that. And then we actually get biblical archaeologists coming along doing none of that and telling me I've got it wrong. This is a bit of a bone of contention.
And we've got a question in chat from Dougal445 saying, are there any holy relics that haven't been disproven?
Well, which I asked him to clarify. Can he give examples of holy relics that have been found to exist?
Well, the thing is that there were loads of holy relics hanging around in the medieval period. I mean,
I was going to say, they just get any
holy relic.
They just get any random old finger bone, and it was a finger bone of some pope or saint or whatever.
It was the pinky. It was the pinky of Saul of Tarsus. It was like
the best one had to be Jesus's foreskin. I mean, it must have been the John Holmes of Judea. I kid you not, because his foreskin must have been about 30 feet long.
Hey, it would have been made a brilliant material to make female bags out of. Well, you stretch it enough, it gets bigger.
The Shroud of Turin was disproven. The carbon dating puts it at a. The Shroud of Turin, the aging on it. When did the Shroud of Turin get dated to? Falchion, do you know? I mean, I know it's definitely not around Jesus' time.
You're talking about 13th century, though.
Yeah, I was going to say about 1200 and something.
Because isn't it very primitive photography technology, basically?
Basically,
I mean, it's a possibility.
It's a pretty neat thing the way they did it, but it's a hoax.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it photography.
this is kind of what I say, is that it's all but been disproven, and the Catholic Church now basically says that it's an article of faith. They don't disagree with things like the carbon dating evidence. They now just say you just have to make your mind up whether it's genuine.
It's just a hoax, like the Loch Ness monster or the moon landing.
Oh,
But yeah, there are
or
plenty
North
of holy,
Dakota.
but there are plenty of holy relics which have, or at least they are genuine, simply because they are so recent that we have plenty of records that they are really the blood of Thomas a Becket or whatever it might be. But as for sort of the ancient ones like the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant, I don't think there's any convincing.
Well, the thing with things like that is, you can actually even see that the problem with relics was being translated into the way that they executed people. Very often, well, Joan of Arc was a prime example. They actually stirred her ashes to ensure that her bones were well and truly crushed, so that people couldn't take them away as a holy relic. I mean, this relics were big business back during the medieval period. I mean, you're talking literally from, well, probably about 1000 AD right up to the Reformation in this country. People would go anywhere to see a relic. And they would actually pay quite a lot of money to actually touch this relic, actually have this relic pass on its fluence to them and do whatever this relic was meant to be doing.
Yeah.
Monasteries had full reliquaries. Even private homes had reliquaries. You couldn't move without hitting a relic in this country. Now suddenly we can't find any of them. It's kind of weird.
Anyway, on that note of something being slightly weird, I've got to head off. So I'm going to wish everyone a goodbye and enjoy the rest of the chat.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Womble. I'll see you
You're
later.
welcome.
Bye, Womble.
Bye-bye.
Meow. Meow.
Yeah, Womble.
Sorry, yes, where were we? We'd moved on from the Turin Shroud, haven't we? I know Thomas a Becket's grave was actually deliberately made with holes in it so that people could reach in and touch his body in the hope that it would cure things. I know, well, it sounds creepy, but there were plenty
I think that's going to cause more diseases than it cures.
This is another one of these little medieval myths about St. George being the patron saint. St. George was actually adopted back during the early 14th century, really, by a cult that were actually trying to make a more militaristic saint. Having somebody who was basically killed by a bunch of knights wasn't as good as having somebody who killed a dragon.
This coming from somebody who celebrates the St. George's Day parade. Are you basically telling me that it's all a sham?
Damn. I also didn't want to have to tell you this, but you know that Santa guy?
Yeah, oh no.
What about him? No.
No, not Santa.
No.
Or Father Christmas, as he's known here.
Wait a minute. Wait. What the fuck? Then who the fuck's lap have I been sitting on every year? Now I'm thinking about suing. That's fucking disturbing.
No, that's surprise
It's the tooth fairy you've been seeing every year.
Oh shit! That surprise butt sex shirt is going to.
Well,
no.
There's plenty. Well, there's a fair amount of evidence to point to who the real Santa Claus was, or rather, the real Saint Nick. The first thing to point out is that he lived somewhere like Turkey, I think it was, and so he would have been quite black. He'd have been a Negro. That's an in-joke between me and Lewis.
Hey, Lewis, you could dress up as Santa and wear that surprise butt sex shirt.
That would be kind of funny. Like, just it'd be funny if I dressed up like Santa and busted through the walls. Oh yeah, like the cool.
But then I suppose we could use that as a retort to Shock of Gods talked about Santa syndrome, which is that there's probably more evidence for Santa than there is for Jesus.
Well, we know that Santa's actually based on truth. Well, I mean, he's basically a
Santa is physical evidence.
Yeah, there's actually a Coca-Cola the Coca-Cola company invented Santa as we know him now, but
I think the whole thing about the red and white outfit being due to Coca-Cola, I think is not actually true.
Actually, I heard that it is true.
It used to be green.
It's certainly a lot of Victorian depictions he's green, but I'm fairly sure, I'll go and double check my facts, but I'm fairly sure that he was depicted in red and white before Coca-Cola ever existed.
If Coca-Cola were the first ones to depict him in red and white, how come people recognised him as Santa Claus in the adverts if that was the first time he'd been depicted in red and white?
Probably because he had a big beard and he said ho ho ho.
Yeah, I mean, come on. He's a fat dude with a white beard and he's handing people presents. What the fuck else
That's
is he?
pretty much all of the East Coast.
He probably,
I mean,
probably
see, look,
said even
look at
Santa
the picture on
Claus.
Blog TV. If that was, come on, if that guy was wearing anything, if that guy was wearing green, I mean, you'd be like, wait, why the fuck is Santa wearing green? Well, back then, you know, if he was wearing red, they'd be like, wait, why the fuck is Santa wearing red? Okay, he's wearing red now.
Well, Coca-Cola used to be green, so maybe he's just followed the trend. I don't know.
No, that's
just
just
then
very
Pepsi
old
made out too.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I'm colorblind. What color is Coca-Cola?
It's
Black.
brown.
It's
Black
like,
is-
well, it's
Black.
really dark brown, I guess.
The coloring is caramel, which is a very dark brown.
It's tar colored.
But although to be honest, what good is us telling you that doing because you don't know what brown looks like.
Good point.
Yeah, it's just the least grey of all of the drinks, okay?
Well, right there, I mean,
I don't see it monochrome. I just don't see the colors properly.
Oh, I
I
see. Well, okay.
I mean,
Okay,
just
thoughtful.
Santa himself is like a god figure. I mean, he sees everything you do. He fucking knows if you've been bad or good, and if you're bad, there's a punishment. He's basically preparing
training
little.
Jesus.
He's basically Jesus in training for the little kids. It's like, well, now you're getting ready to accept Jesus.
I'd
Actually,
give
that's
it
not
the-
a bad idea. Here you are. Here's somebody supernatural.
Yeah, he can go around the world, giving
But
presents
then
to little
that
kiddies.
does actually beg the question, is he a demigod?
I mean, I
this
guess
mod-
if he's
yeah.
supernatural.
Are you saying that the coal parallels with fire and brimstone?
It could.
Well, it's a
When it comes out of the
puni-
chimney, doesn't it?
It's a form of punishment that it's a form of punishment. So just like hell is a form of punishment, he's just mentally preparing kids for fearing eternal damnation. They're afraid of not getting presents, which to a kid is hell, and then they're like, hey, guess what? If you don't listen to this dude named Jesus, you're gonna fucking go to hell
And
forever.
not to mention the anagram.
Hey, if you ask
Satan.
Santa for coal for Christmas and then you act bad, what do you get?
Mind fucking blown.
Can I just say, I've just found, I will try and send this to Colin just a minute. I found an illustration of Santa Claus that predates the Coca-Cola advertising campaign, in which he is wearing red and white. There's also a description from the New York Times about 4 years before the famous advertising campaign, which describes him as wearing red. So I don't think that there's any veracity
Okay, you win.
in that myth.
I think Yoshimo should definitely make that into a Velociraptor thing. If you've been bad and you ask for a lump of coal for Christmas, what does Santa give you?
Just looking at the Blog TV picture right now. Is that volcano shooting down that pterodactyl?
I think your Blog TV's frozen. We've moved on from the volcano. Oh no.
Yeah, it's back.
Oh no.
Oh, there we are. No, I think that's just perspective messing with you. It's a nice thought though, isn't it?
What the fuck? I'm still curious. I mean, slightly off topic. How the fuck did we decide to? Who the fuck decided to make the whole raptor Jesus meme? Like, seriously, how the fuck did that even exist? Like,
Well,
who the fuck thought, let's put a raptor's head on Jesus Christ's
Does-
body?
Well, does the whole
Well-
raptor thing, does that stem from XKCD?
I have no idea.
I think that is responsible for the whole like raptor spawn.
Well, the Bible never says that Jesus wasn't a raptor.
True.
That's a good point.
That is a very good point.
Yeah, we can
I think
list
it
all the
did
things that the
describe
Bible
him as a
doesn't say.
man, so rather than disproving the fact he was a raptor, it gives you an alternate explanation for what he was.
Exactly. I heard that he liked to eat livers. Isn't
I
that
actually
right,
get the feeling
Yoshino?
that somebody would have mentioned it. You know, one of those things, you know?
I don't
Jesus,
know. I mean, the
and Jesus
Gospels
spake
kind
unto
of-
the people.
Well, I don't know. I mean, come on. The Bible. I mean, the Gospels do leave out some pretty important things. I mean, not all the Gospels mention that he was born of a virgin. Um,
There
Not
is.
all the Gospels don't agree on who found his empty tomb or how they found his empty tomb. Maybe the Gospels forgot to mention that he was a fucking dinosaur.
there
It
is
seems likely.
there is an Eddie Izzard routine where Jesus goes down to preach to the dinosaurs, and in the end, an Archaeopteryx takes his head off. But and it says something like he says,
Well,
"Blessed
like I
are
say,
the
I
meek."
hate the guy they sent to arrest him. What? You've given me this little sword to go and attack that?
Maybe Jesus was a rapper. You know,
Ooh.
not really a raptor, a rapper. Straight out of
Mistranslation.
Judea, crazy motherfucker named Jesus.
Rapper Jesus, that sounds well good.
It was a misspelling of rapture or something, and they just associated the word, and the meme was born.
Straight out of Compton, crazy motherfucker named Jesus.
Biggie Smalls.
Biggie. That's his rapper name because there's God and then Jesus and then the same dude, so Biggie and Smalls.
Just picture in my head Biggie Smalls going to a crowd of Arabs and just rapping bloody scripture at things. It's almost as good as rap to Jesus.
Somebody brings up Hicks35 brings up a good point. Jesus wasn't born to a virgin. His mother was a slut. She just lied to Joseph. That reminds me of that picture. It says where it's like Christianity, a lie about one woman's infidelity gone way too far.
I think it's a bit excessive to call her that. I mean, one affair does not make you.
Yeah, I mean, is Bill Clinton a slut? Okay, but yeah, good point. We're getting off topic. So
Yeah, but Bill Clinton wasn't actually likely to have been stoned to death, was he?
yeah, I guess not.
He didn't really have the same incentive that she did.
Ah, the Holy Spirit was a rapist. I guess the Holy Spirit likes surprise butt sex too.
That's not the right way to get someone pregnant, though. So I hate to break it to you.
What? Well, that explains a lot.
Oh god, I just remembered something terrible.
Go on. Well, if you really want to share it.
A woman I work with thinks that you can get pregnant through butt sex.
Oh.
She thinks that the sperm can travel through the body and get into the uterus that way. I almost threw her right into the fryers, but I decided not to do that.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go, cut
could-
myself.
It could just be that she has a terribly gullible husband, and so she's just telling him that because she doesn't want to have butt sex. Yeah. I think we should move on rapidly.
Does anyone else have any questions to ask? Since we have two very intelligent people with Falchion and myself, and then a couple other supporting members.
Thank you very much.
That includes me.
Just fucking around.
I'm the apprentice archaeologist. Well, not even that. I just help out
Did
on the
we
dig.
find the Ark?
But-
No, they
Bucket
did not.
monkey.
Indiana
I'm a
Jones.
failing biology student.
Yeah, Me 15. We talked about the Ark a little bit earlier. A lot of the evidences for the Ark are usually satellite images that somebody has found near Ararat, and it just shows a vaguely boat-shaped impression. And usually then.
Wait, are we talking about the Ark of the Covenant or the
Oh,
Ark?
sorry. I was talking about Noah's Ark.
Yeah, no. Which Ark are we talking about? The Ark of the Covenant or the Ark like the fucking boat?
I'm talking about the boat. I'll just quickly repeat myself.
No, I know, but that's what I'm asking here. Like,
Right,
which one are they?
Oh, we see. Me 15. Which Ark? To which
Oh,
Ark?
okay, the boat. So
Sorry.
yeah, you're.
Okay.
I think that-
Usually when these are investigated, there's nothing there. It just happens to be that shape from space.
The two most famous ones have got to be Durapinar, which is part of the Telchecker mudflow. That's actually been shown. And also, it's not the only boat-shaped formation in the area. There are quite a few. And the next best one has probably got to be the recent Chinese hoax, where they provided video footage of them going down into a large wooden object, supposedly inside a large glacier on top of Ararat. Got inside, and the first thing they found was fresh straw, so they must actually think we're all as gullible as they are. So,
Oh no,
They
it's a
often-
miracle the straw was preserved.
well, yeah, but then again, so were the spiders, by the look of it, because they also had fresh spiders' webs in them.
Nothing like some fresh spiders.
We could, if we really wanted to, go on about the implausibility of all the animals from the Ark. Well, first of all, the animals being able to get to the Ark and then getting from the Ark to their places on the globe.
I've got something to bring up.
Oh,
Yep.
oh God. Yes, go
I want to contribute for the first time in this show.
Oh, Why? Why did you choose now? We were almost done with not having.
It's relevant. It's relevant. Fuck off. It's relevant.
I noticed Master Ghost Knight has just said this new archaeological tool called Google Earth, and yeah, we do use it.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
In my email debate with Paul Taylor, I brought up marsupials migrating to Australia, and he brought it up in Creation Today, which I'm sure you all know by now.
Unfortunately,
and he said something like, marsupials are... He pretty much said they're there because they went there. The topic they bring up is why is it only marsupials in Australia? And then,
they all just said, hey, let's all stick together and go to Australia.
But he actually said the journey from Ararat to Australia, direct, would be the longest distance for any animal to travel. But thing is, we find marsupial fossils in North America, South America, and Antarctica. So he's either suggesting that they went from the Middle East to North America, down to South America, over Antarctica, and then to Australia.
Oh my Jesus!
It was said that marsupials got to Australia via tornado. That's one of conservative older theories.
And they just managed.
That's why wombats really like red shoes, is it?
Yep.
Jesus.
Magically got flung to Antarctica and North America and all those places.
Well, from what I understand, God, that's fucking painful.
Don't think about it any longer.
I'm at a loss for words. I'm not even gonna fucking think about it.
Quick, think about boobs.
Okay.
Now stop thinking about boobs.
Happy places. Nope, too late. Can't stop.
Think about Cabby's boobs.
Oh, hello, my friend is showing up. Anyways, moving on.
I hope the people from Sense About Science aren't listening to this at this point.
Oh, if they're listening to me talk about getting a boner, they can deal with it.
British people aren't as picky about sex as Americans, so they'll be
Let's
fine.
face it, Left. That's all you ever talk about.
Well, what can I say? I'm a sexual being. It's not my fault that, I actually get pussy at Blue. It's not my fault. You jelly? Yeah.
Why do you keep saying that?
You mad jelly?
What the fuck does that mean?
Jealous.
Jelly, you're jelly. So, let's see.
Lazy Americans.
Let's read what some of the questions are, Nya.
I've not seen any for a while. This is really his last call now because we're almost getting close to wrapping up the show. Does anybody have any last questions that they would like to ask Falsham while we have him here? He may well be back next week.
Just to clear things up, somebody said, I thought there was supposed to be a debate. Yes, there was supposed to be a debate, but the asshole from the other side, the creationist side, did not show up today.
There was a little confusion about the dates, and so it may have been inconvenient for him to discover that it was today and not Sunday as he anticipated.
He's actually posting on YouTube at the moment.
That's his excuse.
Yeah,
that's his excuse, but whatever.
But he might have needed to prepare in some sense. I don't know. So,
getting a degree in archaeology might have helped.
So, just to remind any viewers or tell any viewers who've tuned in since, we will be asking Mr. Dathan whether he would like to reschedule the debate to the next show, which will be in 2 weeks' time. In which case, we will let you know in advance. There'll be trailers, there'll be blog posts to keep you all informed. So the debate may still go ahead.
Also, on a side note, my friends just got married, so yay for them.
Congratulations to them.
Congrats.
And they didn't fucking invite me to the wedding. So, anyways, I'm sorry. Somebody was.
I saw a question in chat by Don Q. The Mithrans vanished at the same time that the Christians first showed up. Is there any evidence for that?
So, I'm not entirely sure. Actually,
What are the Mithrans? Well,
Yes,
I know,
I'm breathing.
Those who actually followed Mithras.
but I didn't know whether or not they had. Okay, I didn't know whether or not they had their own cult, religion, whatever you want to call it. I just thought that it was just part of the traditional Roman paganism.
It was actually quite cultish. I mean, they did actually tend to have subsurface temples, and they kind of kept it very, very kind of cliquey, if you like.
Right.
Holy shit.
It was more of a soldier's religion than anything else.
We do have everything here. We have a archaeologist, we have a marine biologist, we have a historian, a geologist, a botanist, and an asshole. we have
A drunk.
we have a drunkard. We have a writer. We have
Psychiatrist.
oh, we also have a computer tech person. Yay!
And we did have
Yes,
a geologist.
You could call me a zoologist, but I'm not really one yet.
No one gives a
And
fuck.
I'm
Well,
You're a zoolog.
student in biology. I'm not finished my degree yet.
no, you don't have to have a degree to be a geologist or a botanist or whatever. Just have.
You at least have to. You at least have to have taken some college classes, which already puts you above most creationists. So, right there, you know.
Unless, of course, we're talking about those who went to Caltech and got 2 masters.
Or was it Caltech he claimed to have gone to?
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, that reminds. Now I remember what I was going to say earlier. When we mentioned we mentioned something, and it reminded me. Have any of you actually been so masochistic to sit through an episode of the Creation Adventure Team?
No, I need to see this.
Oh
It-
my God.
Does acid make it better or worse? I don't think you need any, to be honest. Actually,
No, acid would probably make you kill yourself.
What exactly is it?
have you
Hold
seen?
on, I'll link it.
Have you seen the first of Potholer's Golden Crocodile nomination videos for this year? It is a children's television series of sort of a strange team of scientists, one of whom is an evolutionist and keeps making ridiculous statements and basically strawman arguments. There's a dinosaur.
What kind of ridiculous statements?
Oh, I don't know.
Like
He just
what?
basically goes, "Hey, look at this. This took millions of years to form." And then there's a woman with a bionic eye
Yeah.
who keeps
What
sort
the
of
fuck? This sounds like the weirdest superhero team ever.
look, and she looks at skeletons and all the different bones flash and are labeled and things like that, and it reconstructs. it in
Created
her
day
brain.
6.
Yeah,
I do.
there is a,
Actually, yes, I do believe I've seen something like this.
there is
Hold
a
on, let's
living dinosaur who occasionally passes judgment, and I think sort of he's a bit like Yoda. I think says things in all the wrong order or repeats himself a lot.
Maybe it is Yoda.
And then there's a sort of a Ian Juby type character whose only
Okay,
real
here we go.
qualification is that he has a hat.
Okay, I found it. Prepare Uranus. I'm about to link it. I am linking it here in the top of the chat there, so you can all watch and you can suffer like I did.
Well, as long as the dinosaurs doesn't talk like
refuse.
Jar Jar
Lovely.
Binks.
No, they don't. But it's oh my God, you will probably kill yourself.
It can't be
It is.
worse than looking at Cthulhu.
It is bizarre. It is completely and utterly. There's also the fact that they don't get their own name right in the title
Yeah, he
music.
wears a hat. He must be a fucking paleontologist.
They call themselves the Discovery Team in their theme music when they're in fact called the Creation Adventure Team.
Oh,
AKA or moron.
Is it just like one episode?
Actually, Hick, that's probably a bad idea, Hick, because you may shoot your TV a la Elvis Presley. That's what I would do. I mean, I almost did that if I had my shotgun in hand.
Hey, guess what?
Luckily, it was all the way across
comments
the
are-
room.
Yeah.
Comment the block.
Don Q asks, "Will the panel please post their YouTube links before closing the show?" By that, Don,
Indeed.
Don, do you mean the links to our channels? We'll wait for him to get back on that one. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend watching the Creation Adventure Team. I certainly would not recommend showing it to children.
Well, if you did, make sure to tell them, remember, this is all fundamentalist bullshit, and remember to laugh at them extremely hard.
Yeah.
And then show them actual shows, like something from the Discovery Channel.
Yes.
Why do they all have to block their comments?
Because
Every single fucking creationist video.
wait, I don't think this is a. This one isn't a. Are the comments blocked on this?
Yeah.
On that one?
Stuck.
Are they?
Yeah, they are.
Oh well, probably.
think-
Oh, I don't know. Probably
They find it a
because
bit-
this.
It's a bit revealing that every single, well, as far as I know, every single evolutionist doesn't block comments, yet every single
I mean,
creationist does.
It's funny because he says in the Creation Adventure Team, one of the stupidest things I heard. Well, I guess stupidest isn't even a word, is it? Well, one of the dumbest things I heard was, you like, shark teeth don't tell us what an animal ate. It only tells us that they had sharp teeth.
Yeah,
Which-
it just strikes me
which-
as a really
I mean-
strange coincidence that every
wolves-
single meat-eating species on the planet has sharp, pointy teeth,
Yeah.
and every plant-eating species
Vegetarian.
on the planet has flat, grinding teeth.
My God.
Even
And-
some of the meat-eating plants have sharp teeth.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we can't be absolutely 100% certain that T-Rex and Velociraptor were meat-eaters, apart from the fact that occasionally we find bones in their stomachs and things like that. But
Well,
I
um,
must actually just say I'm really, really comfortable with my horse's sharp teeth putting the bit in, even though I have to put my hand in its mouth. Because I know that those incredibly sharp teeth won't actually penetrate my hand.
yeah,
You know,
I mean,
wolves
Curiously
wouldn't be-
enough, horses do actually have something called wolf teeth, which are actually best way to put it is an atavism of the canine.
there's
Wolves
also
are descended
wolves
from a
wouldn't be very successful if they had a
fox
mouthful
kind
of
of creature.
molars.
horses evolved from something very similar to the fox.
Yeah. And they still actually have the remnants of the canine teeth.
Yeah.
And I would also, partially there's this idea that before the flood, all these things ate meat. They all ate plants. I mean, if you actually try feeding something like a cheetah on meat, on plants, it won't last particularly long. There's also just an idea which I came up with today, actually, which I thought was rather nice. We're supposed to believe that there was no pain, no suffering, no natural disasters before the flood in the Garden of Eden. And I just want to know about the species of tree which need fire as part of their reproductive cycle.
Well,
If there
then
weren't-
I guess whatchamacallit? I guess Chuck Norris wasn't alive before then because pain and
all pain comes from Chuck Norris.
all pain comes from Chuck Norris.
Well, having seen
is
his movies, yes, I can.
This just in from
That's
Headless Chicken. T-Rex ate meat because its arms were too short to toss a salad.
There are other ways to toss a salad.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
It's not quite so easy with forward-biting teeth.
Back into the penis jokes.
that's not a penis joke. That's a rim job joke.
Now, just for everybody's information,
Post
Mr.
them.
Dathan is still posting.
So he's on. He seems to be online. He seems to have
Yeah.
internet access, but he's not
Yeah.
joining us. All right. Well, as I say, it may be that he's posting YouTube comments from his mobile or something like that. We'll ask him.
He's actually going very, very.
Technology's amazing.
Well, one of the good things about it is he's actually putting things in capitals, then going down into lowercase letters. Now, to me, that would say he's probably not posting from a telephone.
Yes. But we'll see. I mean, it
We're
could
giving
well
him
be
the
that-
benefit of the doubt here.
Yes.
I am not that nice. I think he's just a fucking coward, but you know,
Yeah.
it's just,
I'm happy to give him a second chance, though, and
I'm
will.
happy to call him a coward.
We'll have
And
to
then
wait
give him a
see.
second
I've thought
chance.
Much worse. I mean, the man is a complete moron,
Well, that's true.
and it's the only thing he's managed to achieve.
Right. Well, I think it's almost time to wrap up the show.
This
Um,
is the tale.
Do we have any last things that anybody would like to say before we start getting ready to go to bed?
I would like to say that I'm
that?
very, very hungry.
Thank
like
you
to
for
say
sharing that.
I'd like to say that I'm very, very horny.
I'd
Not
like to
really.
say that I'm not going to bed
Anything
straight
new?
after this.
Well-
Anything, Falchion?
I'm perfectly happy with things the way they've turned out.
Yeah,
What
we
we
had a
have
pretty
to
good
do is
episode. Granted,
exactly.
we weren't expecting to have this. This
I've
is
not had to
basically
debate
our
anybody.
prepare for the worst scenario.
The thing is, it's a case of if we are actually going to invite him back, can we come up with a date and can we post it and say, okay, fine, be here or be confirmed to be an idiot?
Yep, it will. We can say with absolute certainty there will be a show at the same time Saturday after next, so 8 p.m.
Yeah. Well, we can't say though
GX.
if he'll accept. We can't guarantee he'll accept. We hope he will, but
we can guarantee that there will be a show happening on this platform, and whether or not he wants to be there for it is his business.
No one's
July
available
30th.
to actually lurk in the chat room tomorrow to see if he turns up at the time that he thought it was.
and if
He
he
knows
doesn't
that
show up,
He knows that it's not happening tomorrow. I actually informed him about 3 days
and
ago.
if he doesn't show up, if he
Oh,
doesn't,
you actually told him?
Yeah, not just that, I've actually put a video out. And it's actually
Right,
on...
because I was kind of under the impression that he'd only found out sometime today or something like that.
No,
So
I know he's known for a while.
Yeah.
and if he doesn't show up, I'll bend him over and fuck him with my penis.
No, something much more ironic, something like one of those survey staffs that they use on archaeological sites or something like that. Because those things are 5 meters long.
Unfortunately, at some point I'm going to have to use that again, so no. I'm sure that we can actually think of... I've actually got a pole arm sitting next to me. That, again,
Yep.
I'm rarely going to be touching the business end of that, and it was designed to cause pain, so...
Yeah. Right, well, just before we go, I would just like to say another thank you to Sense About Science for plugging our show or plugging our blog. And I'll say this again, if there's anybody here who has joined the show since the beginning. Sense About Science is a UK-based charity which aims to promote good science, both in the media and in the general public understanding. So it tackles things like it attempts for creationism to be brought into schools, things like homeopathy, alternative therapies and things like that. They are currently looking for a new public marketing campaign for which they need to raise about £8,000. And so if you are in the UK, you can donate on their website, which is senseaboutscience.org. That's all one word. And if you are a UK taxpayer, don't forget to gift aid your donation so that you would have to pay an extra penny, but the tax man will give tax back on that donation. They're a very good cause, and I recommend that you support them. What on earth's happening in chat? I've just realised what's going on. Right, well, it's almost time to go.
Well, before we sign off, I would just like to remind everyone to watch one of the episodes of the Creation Adventure Team in full. It is right there at the top of the chat. Watch and see how long. This will be one of those if you rage, you lose scenarios. See how far you can, if you are God mode, if you can get through the entire thing without destroying your computer or losing all faith in mankind.
Shall we watch part one?
Go ahead and say no. I'm not even going to enter this competition.
Can we set an official challenge? People have to watch part one and then post in comments how many minutes they survived.
Yes.
The people who posted it won't have a clue what's going on, but we'll know. I'll just also do some of the general things for this show. We will be here every other Saturday as normal. If you would like to be on a future show, if you think that you could contribute something, you please get in touch with us either at our blogs, our email address. Mine is sound@skeptictv.net. Womble checks hers as well frequently, which is womble@skeptictv.net.
Or you can just contact any of us on YouTube.
Or on YouTube, or on any other platforms.
I get all mine. I can I check my YouTube messages all the time. So check. So yeah.
And we're always.
And sound is gone.
And we've lost Sound of Silence. I guess that's what his name is, Sound of Silence.
Wah, wah, wah.
Ha ha ha.
Fuck you, Blue.
Yeah, fuck you.
You fucking alcoholic. So anyways. Well, can we just end the show early? I mean, shit. There's no
People
point
paid
in
for
dragging
2
on.
hours. Give them 2 hours.
For the next 5 minutes, we will be singing our own rendition of.
This is the tale of Captain Jack Sparrow.
Okay, that is
Shut up,
my
Bruce.
cue to leave then.
Left,
My
left,
connection
left.
re-establishes, and what do I come back to?
The tale of Captain Jack Sparrow? That's
Yes.
back to. Pirates so
Sorry.
brave on the 7 seas.
Sorry, where was I? Oh yes, so we'll be posting the topic for our next couple of shows in advance if you want to get involved or if you want to send us a question before the show starts. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you to the panel. Womble, who unfortunately has already left. Other than that, we had Yoshimo 1.
Hello.
Say goodbye, because it's the end of the show.
Oh, fine. Goodbye.
We had Ellie Fired 1991.
Goodbye, everyone.
We had Blue Juggernaut.
What?
Yeah. Say goodbye, Blue.
Okay,
No,
he's
don't.
too drunk.
CS. Thank you to CS Bear for joining us.
I was barely on the show.
Never mind.
We still love you.
Gleamy for his second week in a row. Thank you very much for being here.
Bye.
Dutch Liam 84 has been keeping an eye on chat.
Cheers, guys.
He's also
Okay.
keeping an eye on the ladies.
Our tech guy Colin for keeping the show running smoothly as ever.
Yeah, we had no technical problems today, huh?
And our special guest Falchion 49. Apologies, I suppose, from Mr. Dathan for not being here. Whether or not he actually intended to show up, I don't know.
Or whether or not he would apologise.
And
So
it
right
remains.
there,
And it remains to be seen whether or not he'll be back. If the debate will be on in 2 weeks'
So
time. I
right-
expect it
right
won't.
there, we're better than the Magic Sandwich Show. We had no technical difficulties, besides Womble and some people cutting off. But you guys were always on. We were always on. So
But we just
superior
rubbing
show.
our own backs now to say, aren't we,
Yeah.
mate?
Skeptic TV, officially better than the Magic Sandwich Show. Tell your friends.
Yes, do tell your friends. That's a very good idea.
Thumbs down for me because I strive off haters. Hey, click on hater. There you go. Oh,
Right.
somebody loves me.
So, that's all from us for this week. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. The topic of the show is in doubt at the moment, whether or not the debate will be back on or whether we'll be discussing something else. We will let you know in good time. And I'll see you again soon.
chance of being blown by the Pope, but
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.
goodbye.
Bye.